Thank you so much for joining us back here in Sweden for the Formula One Sim Racing World Championship 2025. It's day two races coming your way. Later on, we'll have Zandvoort, but we kickstart with Spa-Francorchamps, and what a race this is going to be. And what better way to start than with our pole to victor in last season's championship. It's, of course, Barry Berman with the track guide.
Spa is one of the trickiest tracks in the calendar, in my opinion, to put a lap together or maybe to have a really good setup. Because obviously Sector 1 and Sector 3 there is a lot of straight line, so you need to go as low as possible on the wings, but then meanwhile we have the middle sector, which there is so many corners that you will just gain so much with wings. So it's basically one of the hardest tracks to find really good balance between the wings. So I would say that one is really crucial. And obviously track limits. I mean, track limits is fine, but I think we have a corner, I think it's Lecombe. Start of Sector 2, that corner is really, really hard in the game, because if you want to nail it, it's quite tricky with the balance of the cars, because obviously we're running such a low wings, it's so easy to lose the car. At the meantime, you can get a warning. But obviously in quali, I think you just have to go as low as possible on the wings, as it's drivable in the middle sector. And in the race, you basically need to go even lower on the wings, so basically no wings on the car. You need a lot of straight line speed in general because of all the DRS games gonna get played, and it's basically same as Mexico, I would say. If you know you don't have a tire advantage or a really good pace advantage, you still have to aim to be P2 going to last lap, and you either have to use a lot of DRS to pass your rival or the P1 in the main straight, or you have to wait till the Sector 3 straight. That's it.
Thank you very much, Barry. It's as simple as that. That's it. Spa-Francorchamps, simple as that. Your pole to victor last season. I am joined today by none other than Mr. Alex Jeggs, F1 commentator, Matt Gallagher from P1's Matt and Tommy, and Marcel Kiefer, former driver who had a podium back in 2020 in Spa-Francorchamps. Looking forward to this one, Marcel?
Yes, indeed. Obviously, Spa's a great track, good for racing. I think it's going to be a thrill to watch them battle it out, but obviously now we're focusing on qualifying. It's also a tough track to nail a lap, so let's see who's going to be on pole.
And Matt, next to what looks like an R&B legend here, to start the day. Matt, what have you come with, taken on from yesterday's action?
That you can never discount Freddie Rasmussen. Finally, he's got that result that we've been waiting for from him, and I'm excited to see the likes of, Lucas Blakely got some good points yesterday as well. This old guard that we were speaking about, can they mount a comeback as we enter into Event 2 and a couple of races today? Obviously, we're looking at the driver standings here. It is all to play for. You've got from first all the way down to sixth, I think it was, within one race win. So game on.
Yeah, this is what we talked about, JC, last night. It's such a close season. 5 different winners. In part of me is expecting another different winner today.
Yeah, this is going to be a defining day for the championship. It feels like if the names that are on the back foot, like our winner yesterday, Freddie Rasmussen, can get a back-to-back victory, you're building momentum, you've got nothing but Freddie Rasmussen tracks still to come. The great first event that some of the new names had, that might fall away, and we almost revert to form. We revert to the big guns. If they can respond today, that just blunts that momentum a little bit, keeps them in the conversation for the championship. I think our champion's going to emerge from a good day 2 of event 2.
Marcel, I'm curious to know, because when you look at the 5 times we've previously raced here at Spa in the Sim Racing World Championship, Freddie has been in the podium every single time. This is the perfect 4 tracks for him, would you not say, in this event too?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I always remember Freddie for being very strong over one lap at Belgium, but one driver that's definitely standing out here is Danny Beresney. And I think Mercedes knows that, and they will like to hear it as well, because he's incredible. Like, this is his strongest track on any of the F1 tracks, so yeah. I think he's going to be my favorite for the day.
And he's had 3 podiums out of the 5 years that we've raced here. Why is Danny so good right now? Why are we seeing this resurgence of form that we expected a few years back in 2020 when he was at peak point?
I think Danny, he's a strong believer in himself. He knows that sometimes there's just periods where you don't perform that well, but he always knew he has the talent and he can do whatever the team requires him to do. And Mercedes, they believe in him. They put him in every single race. So I think it's looking pretty good for him, and he's also still in the driver's fight,
Yeah.
right on there.
Yeah, Matt, one of those drivers that you think could give us a bit of a surprise today to step up. I mean, we see Pookie back in the rig. It's definitely about the team constructors. You know, it's the constructors championship. That's where the $750,000 prize pool is. So they keep swapping him and Jake Benham out. And Jake Benham would feel probably a bit annoyed that, well, hang on a minute, I've had two podiums in a row now. But that's the sort of level. Which driver do you think is going to be stepping up today?
Well, you know, we're speaking about Mercedes here. It's awesome to see from their standpoint that they've got 3 very competent drivers. And this is a strategy we've not really seen utilised throughout this F1 Sim Racing World Championship until now, where they can literally rely on any of their drivers. You know, Benham, of course, back-to-back podiums. But you have Pookie, who's not done 2 races, and he's still 6th in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah.
So it just shows how much they are delivering over the course of the races we've seen so far.
Yeah, and Spa, in terms of a track, 7 kilometres, one of the longest on the grid. I mean, what do you think is going to be happening today, Alex? Are we in for sort of thrills and spills, or will it be nice and calm?
Spa is the daddy. It's the longest circuit on the calendar. It's one that the drivers really enjoy racing on. And yeah, the great step forward at a circuit of this magnitude. And given the context of Event 1 into Event 2, if you get a win today around this circuit, it's going to be massive for anyone. If they've been on the back foot, if they're trying to defend a lead in the championship, it's going to be big.
Marcel, qualifying, we know the likes of Jarno up there. Qualifying isn't always the strongest point, always not putting it on pole, but delivering in the race. What do you think the sort of driver's mentality will be coming into day 2? Yesterday might not have gone their way. How could they reset coming into this race today?
I think Spas, especially with strategy-wise, you can do a lot of things because it's a long racetrack. So if you get a good outlap, the undercut might be powerful, but also if you maintain the tires like yesterday Freddy did, for example, at Silverstone, you could also opt for staying out longer and then having the advantage at the end of the race. And I think we will probably also see that from Mr. Opmer. I bet he's going to go for the long way. But, you know, I don't know his strategy, so
It doesn't always work though, does it? Because yesterday Opmer stayed out the latest of anyone, but couldn't make that the gains that we expected from him. And he finished in a lowly, I think it was 9th place in the end, despite having those fresh tyres. So it's not a guarantee, is it, that Opmer will get to that top 5? It usually does happen, but yesterday was maybe a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't always work out, but especially Silverstone is one of these tracks where, because you're always like nearly full throttle, in Spa it's a little bit different. In the middle sector you still have to slow down, and that's when the tire advantage actually kicks in big time. But for Silverstone it was a different story. It's just like you have these long straights, long sequences with full throttle, and if you are stuck in a train, no matter how good your tire is, you need to be able to overtake. And if everyone has the same top speed, then the only way to do it is sending it into the corners.
I'm looking around. One of the beautiful things of having this facility, this studio, is that we can see the drivers that change. Fab Donoso out. He'll be the driving partner for Otis Lawrence, who we can see right now for Aston Martin. So, as we mentioned, drivers swapping in and out. Duncan Hoffman wanting to make a mark in this competition this year as well. And just further around, the likes of the McLaren boys that I'm seeing, Lucas Blakely return to the points for him yesterday. That will give him some confidence. But we even spoke about Alfie Butcher, the rookie sensation last year. He'll be looking to make a statement today, hopefully.
Yeah, for his sake, I think we need to see something big from Alfie. We know he's got the speed. He's had a couple of great comeback drives, but nothing of note compared to last year when we were, obviously celebrating him being a really young race winner. So he kind of needs that breakthrough moment with McLaren. Maybe the weight of being with such an iconic team is slightly weighing down on him potentially. I know he said, I think, very early stages, perhaps even after race 1, that he wasn't feeling that pressure, but he's human. Of course, he's wearing the McLaren jersey. It is a big thing for him. So I'd like to see Alfie Butcher really put in a great performance for some point in this event.
We're looking at Ismail Fassi, your Drivers' Championship leader right now, given the eyes. He wasn't feeling 100% yesterday, and asking him, Marcel, you asked him as we walked into the studio today, he said, how are you feeling? He said, hopefully be all good. So keeping his cards close to his chest about how he really is feeling, and doesn't want other drivers to think, oh, Ismail Fassi might not be on full form today, so we can attack him. That's the kind of mentality. All the drivers are keeping their cards very close together. We see Tom Manley now, only one race this season where he wasn't in the points. That was back in China. He had to retire out of the race. Other than that, points in every single race. The Racing Bulls need a driver like that who keeps getting the points. What are you looking forward to most about today, Marcel? We've got Zandvoort later on. Out of these two tracks, which one gets your excitement going?
I think for racing-wise, I think Spa is going to be great, and Zandvoort, the qualifying is just going to be so tight. I think we will see ridiculous gaps between the drivers, like super, super close, and I think a lot of drivers will be heartbroken when they don't make it to Q3 eventually. I think we will see the same thing in Spa, because Spa is usually one of these tracks, drivers feel confident, then they're in the actual qualifying, and suddenly they make a small mistake and they're out. So we might see some big names drop out of Q2.
What about yourself, Matt, out of these two tracks? And it's a long day for the drivers as well as us as well. You're going to be commentating a lot today. How are you going to manage to keep those energy levels at the top?
Well, it's the racing. You know, this championship's been mega so far. I think, I echo what Marcel says. I think Zandvoort qualifying is going to be ridiculous, and we're going to be shouting about thousandths of a second separating drivers. But yeah, for racing, I think Spa will be very interesting to watch. Maybe with qualifying slightly less important than when you look to Zandvoort. So yeah, I'm ready for it. 2 races, going to be a long day, but an exciting one.
Yeah, and your same, Jakesy, looking forward to Zandvoort as much as Spa?
I just heard a massive groan, Tom, because the drivers just saw that it's pouring down at Spa.
Oh, no.
Right, so that's what, if you picked up the groan was, that's the drivers seeing the conditions for the first time today. Looking forward to both. Complete contrast. Not separated by much in terms of miles on the globe.
Oh, wow.
Spa, fast flowing, the daddy of the circuits, one of the great tests. Zandvoort, claustrophobic, difficult. If the car's not in the setup window, you're slow, you're last. It's a horrible track to not have the setup right for. So, yeah, team and driver are going to have to work really hard for the Dutch round, but for this one, Spa in the rain.
I just want to pitch in as well with the fact that
it's set up perfectly. I'm going to leave it to the commentary right now.
You're not going to give us an answer, Matt.
No, we're going to do it.
I'm delayed by 30.
Thank you for joining us. Make sure you're following us on the F1 Esports socials. Alex Jakes, Matt Gallagher, Marcel Kiefer. Enjoy this one. What's happening with the weather, Matt?
Not going to tell you now, Tom. Take a look at the track.
Here's the circuit. It's 7 kilometers. It's 4.3 miles. It's epic. And it is one of our absolute favorites. Spa with the undulation, with the challenge of Eau Rouge, with Radion. Loads of corners. In fact, some corners with multiple names because this track has been around for so long. Originally for motorbikes, and then the cars turned up 1 year later, and they have stayed ever since. It is the reason that you get in to sim racing to compete at tracks like Spa. Q1 is officially underway, and once again, we're going to enjoy a wet qualifying session, Matt, but will it stay wet?
Well, I'm taking a look at the weather forecast right now, and this could be dreamy. This could be another evolving qualifying session. What I'm seeing here is storm, then light rain, then overcast, then storm. So what that will mean between now and the end of Q3, we will have to wait and see. But I believe we had a mix of tyres going on as well. Yes, some intermediates, some wets at the moment.
Ronald's out there on...
Yeah, so they're giving it a go to see if there is any grip at this stage of Q1.
Slicks. He's on softs.
Ronhar's given us a show.
What are you doing, Thomas? This is mad. Let's see if he's got any purchase out there.
It's interesting. So in Q1, we usually see intermediates on a dry track. We're now seeing softs on a wet track.
I'll be tiptoeing round, trying to fire the tyre up. Very unusual one. But as Matt says, the majority of the session is meant to be in these conditions, but it is meant to.
Oh my God, that's wide.
Ebb and flow.
That's wide.
Very wide indeed. Trying to keep it going. That is a big moment at the 9th turn.
Yeah, Freddie Rasmussen there, wasn't it? That was quite close to the wall.
It was,
considering he was on an outlap.
You know what the great thing is about this session? We will have a lot of cars out on track, because the difference between dry and wet qualifying in F1 Esports, we usually, as a driver, we load up the car with as much fuel as possible in the wets to get in like 4 or 5 laps, because the tires, they don't degrade like the softs. 1 lap on the softs, it's game over. So you need low fuel, make the car as light as possible. But now we will actually see the drivers go for multiple laps and don't pit. So yeah, it will be an interesting one.
So is this just Thomas Ronhaar having a bit of fun out there on the soft tyres? Because for me, that's screaming risky.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. He's having some very smiling a second ago. Drift challenge through the final chicane, and I'm not surprised to see him bring it back to the pits.
In one piece as well.
Yeah, nicely done out front as we continue with Freddie Rasmussen, our most recent race winner. Man getting his championship challenge back up and running, and we're riding on board with him through Eau Rouge. Climbing the hill, making corrections through the middle of the corner that you wouldn't normally see. Far more runoff on the left-hand side now than previous years. And he continues to push on. We're going to lose the 5 slowest cars at the end of Q1. Freddie Rasmussen, massive day for his championship challenge yesterday. Not a lot of points being scored by the top 2. He was able to take 25 points out, plus the point he got for pole position as well. Great battle with Danny Beresnay. One driver, the reigning champ, one driver, resurgent in form. Great to see those two battling for a win once again in F1 Sim Racing.
So the reason why we're not seeing a flurry of laps, we've still got around 8 drivers in the pits currently, is because the weather forecast suggests it will get better as Q1 carries on. So 13 minutes to go, and there is light rain rather than the storm that we're seeing right now in 10 minutes' time. So we're going to see the best laps right towards the end. And it's the likes of Otmir, Manley, Beresnay, Ronhaar, and so on, all just sitting in the pits, not bothering with this, whereas Rasmussen wants to feel the conditions, dial in a little bit, perhaps if we have wet weather for the race later, and get a banker in as well. I'm sure that's something to just really dial in for Rasmussen and other drivers out there that are currently on a lap.
Freddie Rasmussen about to put his first lap on the board, trying to assess the conditions. And here he is at the final chicane, completing the longest lap of the year. No, he's not going to complete the longest lap of the year. He's going to come back in. So all the drivers roughly on the same page of what they can expect. Wonder if we'll see everyone pretty much doing the same thing, maybe marking off what the others are doing after we had a split yesterday in Q2, which meant that effectively it became a shootout for the lower places. And the majority of drivers, by timing the right tyre at the right time, automatically got themselves into Q3, and then there were about 3 spots that they were debating later on. Crozen has gone over the line. He continues today. He was fastest. He's just been beaten by Alvaro Carreton. He's looking to turn the page after a slightly disappointing performance yesterday when he finished in 14th.
It's unsurprising to see the likes of Freddie Rasmussen come into the pits if it is forecast to get better, because it's such a long in-lap. You're looking at almost 2 minutes before they are able to get back into the pits. Of course, a few drivers have set a lap time there. Otis Lawrence goes fastest by 0.3 of a second on the wet tyres. Obviously very disappointed Otis was yesterday after the qualifying around Silverstone. And I'm sure seeing these conditions is reminding him of that moment yesterday as well. I imagine maybe not as aggressive of a call if we do get that changeable condition in Q3 again.
It's your rookie season. You're going to make calls that you, maybe even within the same hour. I mean, he was furious with himself yesterday that didn't work out. But it's your rookie season. You're going to have to learn. And the thing is, you have to learn at event pace, because there's no escaping it. If you're going to race in the top tier and you're going to try and go after that world title, you're going to have to do so where your mistakes are amplified if you get them wrong. This field isn't going to let you off the hook, but it'll be a lesson learned. He'll have digested what happened there, and he has another chance today at an equally epic circuit in Spa-Francorchamps, a classic old-school venue. And Marcel, did you enjoy Spa in the wet, Spa in the dry? If you had your choice, what would you go for?
Probably in the dry, because then the middle sector is just a little bit faster and more fun. I like tracks where you have a lot of grip and downforce, but obviously the challenge, it makes it more equal, I would say, because yes, the cars are equal, but I think in the wet you can still make a bigger driver difference, as it's just less grip, there's more pressure, each mistake can cost you more time than in the dry, so yeah, it's just a little bit more technical.
Pookie back behind the wheel is the driver that we're on board with as he goes through the left-hander at Pouhon, and you see working the wheel in a way that in the dry he just wouldn't be concerned with at all. Corners that are far easier in the dry suddenly become a bit of a complex problem to solve in the wet. What do you make of Mercedes' strategy to deploy different drivers in that number 2 seat at different races, Matt?
Well, it's clearly working brilliantly. Perhaps we would have questioned it, and we have questioned it over the years with some teams perhaps not favouring a driver that would appear stronger. But with these three, Benham, Pookie and Beresnay, they're all delivering. Benham in particular, absolutely brilliant yesterday. And he's only appeared in 2 races, and he's put it on the podium both times. And that is not easy in this championship, as we've seen, to have that level of consistency. We've seen the reigning champion, which is Jarno Opmeer's teammate, Freddie Rasmussen, struggle massively. So for Benham to come in, Pookie as well, it's working brilliantly for them. And Mercedes have a healthy lead at the top of this Constructors' Championship. Red Bull, of course, chasing them down. As we take a look at Opmeer on the outlap and on intermediates. So this is where we'll start to see some representative running, where the drivers want to put on some kind of benchmark as we enter into the sort of middle stages of this Q1 session.
Pookie taking it through Radion and onto the Kemmel Straight. His teammate Danny Beresnay just a few meters behind him on the racetrack. Beresnay is revitalised and back in contention. Of those at the front of the field, had a good day yesterday. Fassi didn't score. Opmeer, late strategy to charge through, netted him a couple of points but no more. Otis Lawrence, that qualifying gamble cost him. P8 for Otis Lawrence. Danny Beresnay, second place, so doing well in those top 5 drivers. The race won by Freddie Rasmussen with a point for pole, as well as we see Pookie further up the road. We're looking at the 2 Mercedes attacking the racetrack at the moment, and we have one driver in Pookie on the full wet tyre. Plenty, though, out there on the intermediates, but the best times so far set on the wets. I imagine that's going to change in the next 30 seconds or so.
Pookie running very much out of sync with everybody else. The only driver, as you say, on the wet tyres. Marcel, do you see this being a slight mistake from Mercedes, the fact that he's out there still on the wets, everybody else either on a lap or on an outlap?
I mean, we will see it by the end of the sector if he's actually pitting now or if he's going to continue. Maybe he's also just like, the track is anyways going to improve. I will just get the delta laps in, and maybe there's not the biggest difference between intermediates and wets right now. And maybe he wants to save another intermediate. So I guess he wants to focus on the final run, so he will eventually come in. Is he coming in now? No. So I guess after this run, he's going to come in, put low fuel in, and go for one run on the intermediates.
There's a level of confidence then from Pookie. It goes fastest, as you can see there, but
oh wow,
very quickly eclipsed by Beresnay. You wonder if there should have been a call there of Beresnay going almost 2 seconds quicker
looking
than
at
his
that lap
teammate.
time.
Most likely, yeah. I think that there was a mistake by Mercedes, but I think Pookie still probably has the confidence. Otherwise, he would have pitted himself.
But it just gives him one lap, right? There's no reference for him as he'll go on to the intermediates. Everybody else has decided to go on the intermediates early, learn their braking points in these conditions. So a little bit more pressure on Pookie's shoulders as we enter the final stages of this session.
Definitely.
Tom Manley up to second place. Everyone on this Inter tyre is going to be in that ballpark of the 152s. And Freddie Rasmussen makes it a 152.0. That track's going to get quicker in the next 6 minutes. No call to come in for Pookie. It's cost him about 2 minutes on the clock there, plus making sure that you're getting out of the way of drivers who are on attacking laps. It's Rasmussen, then Brendan Lee, Danny Beresnay, Jarno Opmeer makes it a Red Bull 1-2 as we get our first representative laps. Nicholas Longuet had gone to second. Thomas Ronhaar with serious pace out there. Look at that time, 51.7 for Thomas Ronhaar, who told us yesterday he was racing cautiously after the fireworks of event 1. Lucas Blakely is slotted in to second place, then it's Rasmussen in third. And how about that lap time from the returning Duncan Hoffland, who's put it P4 at the moment. Barry Borman cuts the beam. He's gone ahead of his teammate at Ferrari, Nicholas Longuet, as they look to try and re-establish themselves in the Constructors' Championship. They were the champions of 2024.
So Ismail Fassi, worth noting, currently 20th, in the pits, not doing any laps currently, and I'm just having a look over at the Williams cockpit where Fassi is. He's being rolled back into his garage
so he's still
at the moment.
Still going to have a go, still going to have a run here.
Oh, wow.
As Crozen goes up to third, and
Great lap.
he's managed to improve for Haas.
So the track is evolving.
Yeah,
you quite
massively.
clearly see that. Crozen going up to third, and we saw in that last flurry of laps that the later drivers were going into the sort of top 8. So yeah, this is going to be very much last across the line. Worth mentioning from yesterday's qualifying,
I was going to say this.
turned on ghosting, which means that they can be within 3 seconds of the car ahead, because they won't get any dirty air, they won't get any slipstream. They're allowed to be as close as they want, as long as they don't drive through. That's the
Drive through.
that is crazy timing.
On the exact moment you were describing it. So this isn't the case for the race. We revert back. It's switched off for the race, but this came about as a result of slipstreaming in China, where we had, if you didn't have a slipstream, you didn't have a chance, basically, which is not how they wanted it. The effect of the dirty air different for this year's game. So the ghosting is on there. It means that you can, as a pack, basically cross the line together. That is something that's going to be key, though, because they're going to be parked up, ironically, at the bus stop. They're going to be parked up at the end here because they're all going to want to be, effectively, last over the line.
Exactly, so we'll see a big train, I imagine, similar to what we saw in Silverstone, and we will see improvements as well. As much as, Marcel, we spoke about this, I can't remember if it was on or off air, but in terms of choosing whether you wanted to be a Lucas Blakely at Silverstone, we have clean air, you don't have to worry about cars around you, or being last across the line, but you have cars all around you making distractions, maybe just your braking references slightly changing because you're watching someone else. What would you pick in this situation?
I think I would go for like an in-between. So I wouldn't go as early as Lucas yesterday, because we can see that the track is significantly improving, but I would not want to be in the pack with other drivers, because if someone makes a mistake and you might be a little bit too focused on not getting too close, maybe you're doing the same mistake. So, yeah.
So everyone coming back to the pits, just checking the studio here. Everyone's parked up, which is why we've taken you to live pictures of the rig. Everyone in conversation with their teams. You can see them at the back of the rig set up there. Real-time communication between driver and engineer, trying to get that correct placement on the circuit. This is the 6th qualifying session of the F1 Sim Racing World Championship in 2025. The story of yesterday was Rasmussen versus Beresnay. In qualifying, Rasmussen was the driver to pip Beresnay to pole. You're looking at a formidable lineup of champions at Red Bull. Freddie Rasmussen, Jarno Opmeer trying to take the championship lead today. And you have to say, Matt, 2 minutes on the clock, Q1, our championship leader, Ismail Fassi, one of the stars of Event 1, superb in qualifying in Event 1, is currently plumb last.
We said it in the pre-show, this Event 2 could be the making of a champion, and Fassi needs to deliver in this final run of Q1. There is pressure on his shoulders. How does he work with this, right? He had 3 pole positions in Event 1. It was all going so swimmingly, but in a championship like this, it won't always go that way. And this, again, similar to Silverstone, is a test for Fassi now. He didn't score in Silverstone, and he started 15th. He absolutely, categorically cannot start 20th at Spa and expect to get a good result. Of course, overtaking is possible, but from 20th, Fassi needs a lap.
Yeah, and you wouldn't feel, on the evidence of the lap time so far, that Jarno Opmeer is going to restrict himself in terms of the points finish again. So his championship lead is under threat right now for one of the great surprises and success stories. And here comes the train. I can tell you, about to line up in the final sector, a massive gaggle of cars featuring Brendan Lee and our current fastest driver, minute on the clock, Thomas Ronhaar. Here is the train in your picture at the moment. And here come the drivers together, trying to be last over the line. They'll back it up so that they have the best possible conditions. The track evolved to its driest point of the session so far.
This is essentially time trial.
It is,
you just load it up, you've got ghost cars around you, you'll be able to see references everywhere. But this is going to be interesting. Who can actually deliver in this chaos? It's not going to be easy.
Oh,
Look
my
at it.
God.
Look at this.
Well, this is unusual. Here we go. Let's define the final 15 for this qualifying session. We're about to go over the line. We're on board with Brendan Lee. He's a 2-time champion trying to book his place in the top 15. He's gone out in Q1 a couple of times this year, looking to avoid that right now. And we're into La Source, the hairpin that begins this lap. Massive lap for everyone. The track is at its driest, so effectively we've got orders on the left-hand side. A yellow flag or contact ahead could stop everyone improving, but if it runs green, that lap time order on the left-hand side is about to change.
Yeah, we're going to see purple sectors everywhere, I'd imagine. So I think everybody made it across the line in time, which is good. As we see Otis Lawrence, for example, you can see there, top right, he's improved his first sector by 0.6 of a second. This is going to be quite the flurry of laps, Alex, to keep an eye on.
I was ticking through, okay, so thinking about how we're going to tell you what's going on, tell you the sector times, and I was like, we might just have to give you the order at the end, because if we give you the order in real time, as everyone crosses the line at once, it is going to be loud and ridiculous to hear.
Fastest first sector of anybody, Brendan Lee.
Oh, Brendan Lee having a party. Can he keep it going for the next 2 sectors? They're glued together. The order on the left-hand side of your screen is about to tick over like a fruit machine, and then we will get our final 15 to head to Q2.
So some drivers will have different setups, of course, but Brendan Lee was nearly 4/10 clear of his teammate Thomas Ronhaar, who's fastest in this session. Let's keep an eye on the middle sector. 47.1, he's gone 8/10 quicker, Ronhaar, in the middle sector. This is going to go down to the wire.
So this is surely going to be just a flurry of provisional polls.
Oh my God.
There's one for Tom Manley in another lead. So the order on the left-hand side is basically redundant. You are going to improve due to the track evolution, but how much by is absolutely crucial. Oh, Zilderim to second, Ronhaar to third, then Berezne. Tom Manley still fastest, Brendan Lee is second, Alfie Butcher goes quickest. The lap time's coming in. Barry Burman's had a really tough lap. He's going to drop down, he's going to drop out. Also struggling, Edu. Frustration in the arena, and that ticked over. That was ridiculous. So we got the flurry of laps together at the end. The bottom 5, Barry Burman, Thomas Gow, Crozen, Hoffland, and Josh Edu fall at the first hurdle. And the shock today, one of our race winners, 5 different race winners this year, and it's Barry Burman in 16th place, who is your headline shock at the end of Q1, a frankly ridiculous finish to Q1. Everyone crossing the line at nearly identical times. Alfie Butcher fastest, Barry Burman out, along with Gow, Crozen, Hoffland, and Edu.
What a session that was. Wow. Otis Lawrence just about managed to get through in 14th position there. Thomas Ronhaar in 12th. Really fascinating when you look at the sector times, the differences in setups that some of the drivers have gone for here. Some with top speed, like Brendan Lee. Others, Thomas Ronhaar, absolutely electric in the middle sector. So yeah, let's see what happens as we go into Q2 and Q3. But Barry Burman, yeah, he's going to be gutted with that one. Just not working for Ferrari at the moment. They scored some good points at Silverstone, but this is not the qualifying that we expect from the likes of Barry Burman.
No, not at all. And just looking across, he placed his hands on his head in despair there, because 16th place for the driver, 7th in the point standings, one-time winner this year, but 3 times he has not scored, and 16th puts him up against it. You can see the times that they are off at the end. Really difficult to set your time at the end. It effectively became one-shot qualifying, didn't it, with the track conditions as they were. But it's Barry Burman, Thomas Gow, then Crozen, Hoffland, and Edu, who you're looking at the moment, the Alpine driver, who is out in that first part of qualifying.
It was interesting when you look at the order and that chaos of trying to be the last over the line, which clearly distracted some of the drivers with those kinds of gaps. Tom Manley was the first to go over the line, second fastest. So that might well set the trend of maybe we don't need to go over with 5 seconds left. Let's give ourselves 25 seconds and some clear air.
From a driving point of view, Marcel, would that be distracting? Would that throw you off your optimum performance?
I think we should just ask Barry, because we all know Barry is quick, and I think he probably just got distracted by being in this mess of many cars. I think it can be very distracting, and personally speaking, I always like to have qualifying space, like unlimited space. I basically wanted to be completely alone on the track, and this would be so chaotic for me.
I guess the allure is that, but the track conditions are going to be the best if you're in the chaos.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, you could see it as well. Tom Manley was the first car out on track there. And we have this lap time from him. He's P2, even though he didn't have the best track state. So, yeah.
And we can hear from him and his reaction right now.
It's not going to be enough. The track was getting so dry, man. It's not going to be enough.
Not going to be enough.
It was.
Quite easily. P2 in Q1.
It's interesting how this has played a massive part in event 1, still playing a massive part there. So he's skewed negative. He thinks there's more lap time out there. It's interesting that he says that, because everyone else is in the gaggle. Everyone is in the ghosting gaggle behind. It's easily enough. So again, the expectation meeting reality, there's a distance, and there has been a distance all the way through this year's championship.
Yeah, it gave a similar vibe to Bahrain when Manley said, it's over, it's done. You know, I'm on the wrong tyre, I'm on the hard tyres, it's not working for me. But then things can change. It's not as if every other driver is going to set their optimum lap time. We've just mentioned the chaos that was happening behind. So I think Manley will be learning as he goes through this championship that it's not all bad. Sometimes it will work out.
Yeah. In Bahrain, he needed quite a few driving shenanigans to stay in position. Marcel Kiefer is going to look at the streams in the gallery now. He's going to be across all of the action to try and analyse and unpick what happens in these vital segments. We thank him for his input in Q1. We journey to Q2 as it continues to dry out. And just because I like this section so much, I wonder if we could go back to the weather, Matt. Ooh. And just remind everyone, maybe you might be joining us later on, maybe you might be missing the real thing in the off-season for Formula One. Maybe this is your first time watching sim racing. If it is the case, great to have your company. Hope you're having a great day wherever in the world that you are. We're in Belgium right now, enjoying Spa-Francorchamps. Later on, we're journeying to Zandvoort for a complete opposite challenge and a DRS train that will never end. But looking very dry out there, isn't it? What's it meant to do for the rest of the qualifying hour?
So, again, similar to Q1, I think we're going to have the best laps towards the end of Q2. That's what the weather forecast is suggesting. And then Q3 is a bit of a lottery. It's saying overcast, but then there's also a big chance of rain. So we may well see the fastest lap times in Q3, almost like a one-shot qualifying. So again, we're going to get some frantic action. But yeah, this is Spa in real life and also in the game. Just throwing up curveballs when it comes to the weather.
Yeah, wonderfully reflective. And the drivers, Marcel was telling us yesterday about how they divide up their time in preparing. So the majority of their prep being done in the dry. Think of the most extreme example of this, where Istvan Pukki has been behind the wheel prepping Spa all the time. Not racing yesterday, even though he went into yesterday 4th in the standings. Prepared to come back. By the way, he's still 6th. He's not taken part in 2 races. That's how competitive it has been this year. That's how inconsistent the form book has been so far this year. But he's done a lot of prep. He will have had more laps compared to everyone else as they have to split their resources. How much practice, and it is unlimited, like the old days of unlimited testing. You can go again and again and again. This special game build, I don't think we've mentioned this in this event. We did an event one, but just want to remind everyone, this is not your plug-and-play version of the game. This is a special sim racing world championship build of the game that the drivers put so many hours. Honestly, the dedication that this lot put in is mind-blowing, really.
It certainly is, and you mentioned a good point about Pukki in particular. Has clearly shown that he has the talent to have a full-time race seat at pretty much any other team. Yeah. But the fact that he can dedicate more resource and time for a track like this, because he's got Benham working on yesterday, for example, and however they're going to divide the next 2 races. So that should, in theory, give Pukki more time to have worked through every condition, every dynamic that can change around a track like this, which is, I imagine, what a lot of teams would have expected with dynamic weather on around this track in particular. So let's watch out for Pukki. He's already had some great results this season, and he navigated Q1 very well. Worth mentioning, of course, Fassi. We were speaking about him. He managed to put that lap in at the end as well.
Crucial that he did so.
Exactly. So let's see how Q2 unfolds as we ride on board with Lucas Blakely on the Inters. But I believe we are going to be changing over to the soft tyres, and this is just a warm-up lap. Look how dry it is out there.
Yeah, we are into, I mean, for Spa, this is basically tropical. So the drivers will be on the Red Bull soft tyre for the important laps. Just getting references in, just getting laps behind the wheel. Lucas Blakely, our former champion, sends it the correct side of the bollard, brings it in to the pits and parks up, and we'll take on soft tyres. So we have gone from storm to dry running, and the driver's going to have to show us the skill set. Be really interesting from our point of view to see whether we get a scrambling of the order here, and drivers that were looking comfortable. I mean, Brendan Lee was really enjoying those wet conditions. Can he replicate that now in what is turning into bone-dry conditions out on the circuit? Just a reminder for you, though, the dynamic weather means that we could get a change in conditions back the other way by the end of qualifying.
Absolutely, and I think another driver that I'm very keen to see, Freddie Rasmussen, as he enters that right-hander, was sideways. We can actually hear from him now and some of his thoughts through this session.
So right now, inters and softs are same pace.
I think that's a slightly delayed one because the softs are clearly working a lot better now, although we did see that slide from Rasmussen earlier on in this lap. But I'm interested to see how Freddie delivers, because it was a sensational performance at Silverstone in those changeable conditions. Again in Q1 he was right there. So Freddie now back to dry. Can he make his way through to Q3 safely, where we may well see a change of conditions and back towards the favour of where he seems to have a bit more pace in these changeable conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. Freddie Rasmussen's old teammate on our team, and we're very grateful to have him, Marcel Kiefer, pointing out as we went on board with Rasmussen there that he has the little strip in the game of the mirror that not everyone does, not everyone has that set up, and it was good to go on board and see the arrangement that he has. As part of the analysis that we got yesterday, we'll be bringing you more of that with Marcel Kiefer across the entire event. Freddie Rasmussen has put a 44.6 on the board. Tom Manley didn't think his lap time was going to be enough to get into this session, but he has got into this session, and he's been comfortably troubling the top 10 throughout this year, and hoping for a repeat of this, trying to book his place into the top 10 shootout for pole position. We're on board with him into the Fandis chicane.
I absolutely love this. The difference in setups. Freddie Rasmussen clearly going for more downforce. Manley's going for a rocket ship in a straight line. And it's all about just clinging on in this middle sector and then reaping the rewards in the first and third. Manley is up quite significantly on Freddie Rasmussen. Of course, Freddie made that mistake that we saw. So Manley should eclipse this quite easily come the end of this, unless the Freddie Rasmussen mistake is changing my thoughts on what setups they're running. But Manley into the final chicane actually decides to pit. So not happy with that lap is Manley. And this is the thing, right? They have to decide very early, okay, that lap's not good enough. I'm going to come into the pits and wait for a better time as the track continues to ramp up.
Yeah. Everyone with the expectation that we're going to get a repeat where the track will be in the best conditions in 7 minutes' time. Nicolas Longuet now out of Blanchimont corner has the final chicane to go. Haul on the anchors, throw it to the right, quickly to the left. Drivers cranking on a huge amount of steering lock as they do so. Very aggressive style required in this build of the game. In 2025, Nicolas Longuet is your fastest driver. The Ferrari man is ahead, but great for us to enjoy these talented operators behind the wheel, but it's all going to come down to the final few minutes. We're basically still in podcast mode.
We certainly are, and that shows exactly why Manley went into the pits, because Longuet 1.5 seconds quicker than Freddie Rasmussen's time. So Longuet putting the gauntlet down. And the beauty for these drivers as well is that with a wet Q1, it means they've got soft tyres at their disposal. They can go as many times as they kind of like, that they can fit in for timing. 6 minute 50 to go. Joni Tormela decides to not complete that lap either. So we await the chaos, Alex Jakes.
We do indeed, as we see Otis Lawrence on the slick tyre. Green Aston Martin onto the Kemmel straight. And heading down as we cut to Lucas Blakely, driver who got his first point score of the season. Mad old sentence. It's been a very, very unusual year, though. And Lucas Blakely finding himself with a decent response behind the wheel there. Always interesting to see the car's language of operation. Interesting to check in at what Lucas is feeling at this stage as well. Slightly despondent when he got out of his rig yesterday that it wasn't a podium. But points on the board, something to work with this year. And I really do feel that this is going to be such a defining day. Can those who missed out in Event 1 re-establish themselves in Event 2? And that's going to mean for Fassi, as a new name in recent years, can he find himself back inside the top 5? Are we going to see Otmir with that Q3 that he needs? We know he loves a strategy where he charges through at the end. And will it be, once again, like yesterday, Rasmussen fighting at the front along with Danny Beresne? Great race at Silverstone yesterday. And We're building up now to the final minute, effectively. But let's see this lap completed by Otis Lawrence. He's decided to go out there, and he's gone fastest. Everyone is getting the benefit of the track ramping up, but a good lap to go with it as well. And it's Lawrence P1. I wonder if anyone will fancy the Manley approach. Tom Manley going for that lap just ahead of the gaggle, or whether everyone's prepared to just deal with the ghosting and be last over the line, because the track evolving with every second that ticks down on your left-hand screen, or right-hand screen.
Interesting, so 4 minutes 40-ish to go. I wonder if there's any weather concerns towards the last few minutes of this session, hence why Manley's gone a little bit earlier. But either or, pushing very hard indeed. Into the right, then the left, chucking the car in. Manley showing some confidence, it has to be said, especially with the way he dealt with Q1. And Manley, once again, I think, similar to how I was saying about Alfie Butcher, I think Manley's just waiting for that real breakthrough moment that he absolutely can do. The potential that Manley's got, the raw speed, he's been right there. But just the races haven't unfolded quite the way he's wanted. So Manley, let's see if he can get through to Q3 safely.
Let's hear from Nicolas Longuet right now.
Otherwise he would get
Yeah, it's
screwed.
definitely not going to be... I don't know if it's going to be fully dry, to be honest. It's drying so slow.
So there you go, that's kind of what I was saying, that there is still concerns about the weather here, and also the fact the track is kind of ramping up. I know visually it looks bone dry, but the lap times have evolved quite significantly, with Otis Lawrence in particular showing that. So let's see what Manley's lap time is. How is the track changing as we enter the final corner?
Going to be a good indication, this. So he's going to cut the beam, he's into DRS, that's the beep. So again, another improvement. It's such a long lap that you're always getting improvements. Racing Bulls 1 and 2 at the moment. Ozilderim and Manley. Jano Opmeer's gone into P3. And it is improving. But interesting to hear from Longuet that it's drying slowly, and there's going to be a bit of improvisation for the drivers here.
Yeah, Opmeer's could be under a bit of pressure with a 41.0, 2 minutes 54 to go. Drivers running very much out of sync, it has to be said. Fassi into the final chicane now. Where can he go? He's not got a lap time on the board. Fassi, our championship leader, goes fastest of anybody. That's a big statement from him.
Yeah, important lap for him. We're still in this in-between stage where we're not quite with the track at its fastest. Alfie Butcher, we've highlighted him in the pre-show. A man who was superb in his rookie season, posted into 4th place behind the Racing Bulls, behind our championship leader, looking to re-establish himself today after a non-score at Silverstone. His teammate Alvaro Caraton in 7th place at the moment. Our winner from yesterday, 0.05 of a second ahead of Fassi. Freddie Rasmussen, P1, 2-minute warning coming your way, as we will see the drivers on the outlaps, and no time on the board yet for Beresne, for Ronha, for Pookie, or for Brendan Lee, who you're looking at the moment.
We want to see a good result for Brendan Lee, don't we? His final season. It's not gone his way just yet, but we know with some crazy races, he loves to get right in the mix. But Brendan needs a good lap here. He's a couple of tenths down on Freddie Rasmussen through the first and middle sectors. So this may well not trouble Q3, but let's see what Brendan puts down.
Let's see if you can get a lap time in the top 10 that gives you half a chance. 5th place. Ronhart goes into 3rd, so that's the effort from the Sauber team. Pookie returns. He's made Q2. He's outpaced his teammate at this stage. And we'll get another lap. Cross the line with 1 minute and 12 seconds to go. Rasmussen, our reigning champ, ahead of Fassi, our current championship leader, has just been displaced by Nicolas Longuet, who found a big improvement on his previous time. Ferrari man, currently in 7th. Look at the time gap between Rasmussen and Fassi, with Longuet in the middle.
So here we go then. Drivers coming into the pits. Otis Lawrence starting, or is on an outlap currently. Lucas Blakely into turn 1, 15th position at the moment. Just shows how much the track has ramped up, because he was fastest not that long ago, and now he is slowest in this session.
Okay, so big lap and last opportunity in Q2 for Lucas Blakely. So having qualified as one, effectively, earlier on. We now have,
Otmer's out.
everyone completely split.
So Otmer's out. So this is what's happening. They've been running out of sync, and Otmer's 11th and in the pits. So he has no chance to reply, and I thought it was going to put him under pressure, and it's put him out already without these final few laps coming in from some of the drivers.
So the checker flag will be waiting for everyone pushing on at the moment, and it's Fassi who has exited. Zodarim is done, Manley is done. Butcher is on the bubble. He's at risk. Jarno Opmeer always targeting Q3 because we know he's got the race pace, but the one-lap pace has hurt him here. And we're going to have a battle between the McLarens. Lucas Blakely looking for his best lap when it matters most. First sector's going to give him an opportunity. Such a long lap that we don't have the second sector until right about now. And it's not searing pace from Blakely. But is he going to be able to get an improvement that gives him an opportunity? Few spots of rain falling as we complete the end of qualifying. Was that the reason for all the caution as the drivers are finding themselves off the racing line? Man, that was so much steering lock before we'd even got to the corner. That was a really intense line. Blakely fighting. Can he manage to get through? No, only 14th. And the McLarens are 10th and 14th. Otis Lawrence drops to 15th place. Can he find an answer? Brendan Lee is in 9th. He's done his last lap. We still have Lawrence, though, attacking one of our 5 different winners from this season, and he's bailed out. So the optimum time to go was around 2 minutes on the clock, and we find ourselves with Jarno Opmeer, Joni Tourmala, Carrington Blakely, and Lawrence out in the second part of qualifying, a completely different type of session to what we saw in Q1. The drivers were wary of the oncoming rain and different run plans, different results. That picture tells a story. Blakely is out along with Lawrence, Carrington, Tourmala, and significantly for Ismail Fassi's championship lead, his closest contender will start in 11th place.
They weren't listening to our weather forecast because there was an 89% chance of rain, and some of the drivers, Lawrence and Blakely, decided to take a risk, and it didn't pay off once again. So the likes of Manley, that we were saying, okay, 4.5 minutes to go, he's putting a lap time on the board, was the perfect way to go about that session. Manley finishing 6th in Q2, but Opmeer 11th isn't devastatingly bad.
No.
We've seen him win from further back, but it's not ideal.
Yeah, was in furious communication with the team. Wasn't furious, but he was frantically in communication with the team before. Tough to know. These conditions have really put a curveball in. We had a wet qualifying, dynamic conditions yesterday. Same thing again today. And when the talent level is so high, when the drivers are so closely matched, this is creating a curveball every time. It's scrambling the grid, but there's not, when you've got one-stop races, there's not the facility to bail yourself out with a different drive. Spa, be interesting to see whether, we heard from Marcel earlier on, but that middle sector means there is a massive difference if you go to fresh rubber or you can extend your stints. So more of a tyre differential around this circuit. But we do have our top 10 confirmed. We have lost the driver second in the point standings. Opmeer in 11th, then Tourmala, Carrington, former champion Lucas Blakely, and one of our race winners from Saudi Arabia earlier this year, Otis Lawrence. Our top 10 shootout will be Freddie Rasmussen, Nicolas Longuet, looking confident in any condition, which is interesting to see from the Ferrari driver. Fassi, our points leader, and then Ronha, Elzodarim, Manley, did a great job early on as well. They were watching that one safely out of the rain. Pookie ahead of Beresne, Brendan Lee into Q3 along with Alfie Butcher. We can now hear from Claire Cottingham, who's speaking to Otis Lawrence.
Lawrence, at a point where we don't really want to be speaking. I know that tricky qualifying session, rain coming down, which caught a lot of drivers out. That second session, also quite tricky. I can see in your body language that you're disappointed already.
Yeah, don't know what to say, to be honest. Just, of course, the rain screws me up again. I've felt like I've been the quickest here, and it's unfortunate, but we just have to come back for the race.
plenty to play for in the race, and Spa's such an iconic track that we all know so well. Is it a track that you enjoy?
Yeah, it's a great track. I felt good around here. It's just rain caught me out again, but it's just unlucky. I know I have the pace, so we'll just have to make our way up again.
Is it a recurring theme that you're seeing with rain at the moment? Is it something that maybe, I don't know, you need to do more in rain? How does that kind of work?
I just think it's the timing. We just didn't get it right today because it's all over the place. It's a bit of a gamble sometimes. You just never know. You saw a lot of drivers got caught out yesterday as well, so I think it's just down to luck, to be honest. It's just, yeah.
Plenty still to play for when the race comes in?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you head back to your rig. Apologies again for seeing you at this time.
Thank you.
Understandably frustrated in the interview, Otis Lawrence, and he feels that just the timing, creating an element of luck there. Matt, what do you make of that?
It's luck to a degree, but also we could see it on our weather forecasts. There was a significant chance of rain, so it's how much of a gamble do you really want to take in that sense? Of course, he hoped that it would still remain dry and that the track would continue to evolve and ramp up, but he's got the pace, so I don't think, again, this slight risk was necessary for Lawrence. He's shown, and he said that himself. He said this, I think, in both interviews we've heard after qualifying, that he's one of the quickest here, and I don't think we can deny that. But they need to make sure, as a team, they put him in the positions to be able to deliver. And the chaos does not end either, as you can see. It's continuing to rain now. And I'm looking at the weather forecast. This, by the looks of things, is going to be a one-shot qualifying.
Yep.
So this is all on the line. In these first laps, we're going to see a massive scurry out there from all of the drivers, because these, by the looks of this weather forecast, are the best conditions.
So get out there, put your lap time in early, and deliver at the moment where it really, really counts. 11 minutes on the clock, but if Matt's weather information is correct, and who honestly knows, given the last couple of days. But if it is correct, you've got to deliver.
Are you doubting my weather forecast, Alex?
I'm doubting some of the weather information because the teams didn't seem certain. I mean, we had a world champion out there at the end, and it was raining. So it's not certain when to deploy your cars. But when the information says, so this is a perfect illustration of what we were talking about with Aston Martin. When the illustration, when the weather says, right, there's a chance this might be your only opportunity. Get out there, get the job done, and if you have to go again, so be it. But if you put it in the top 5, you have bailed out your team and your chances of contending for the win.
Yeah, it's plain as day. Everybody out there on outlaps, I'm looking at the weather forecast. It says light rain right now, and in 5 minutes a storm. So get out there, set your lap time. Who's going to be on pole position? Could we see the likes of Brendan Lee sticking it on pole position out of nowhere? These are the conditions that we can see that.
Well, that is absolutely the case, because he seemed really comfortable in the wet weather earlier on. Sometimes just certain conditions suit certain drivers. The conditions fall to the window where you're able to take a little bit more speed through the middle of the lap. Remember, those are the slow corners. That becomes slower, that becomes longer. We've seen the drivers work the wheel. It can sometimes look wetter than it is. Fascinated to see where the benchmark time goes. You're on board with Tom Manley, who's like to be first in the queue throughout today.
I was about to say that. Tom Manley once again leading the field to set the first lap time, which in usual wet condition qualifyings, when it's getting drier, would not be the way you want to do this, but it's getting worse. So Tom Manley is going to try and set the benchmark and potentially get provisional pole position, which of course means a point for the championship as well. How does he negotiate into this right left-hander? It looks pretty nice. You can ride on the curbs pretty well. Just skirting with the rear end there is Tom Manley as we head down the hill now. Can Manley get right in the mix for the race later on?
Super start to the lap for Manley. He's faster than Freddie Rasmussen by 1/10 of a second, faster than Ron Ha by 2/10 of a second. Really, really good effort from him. Nicolas Longuet going nicely in the first part of the lap. He is lighting up the timing page.
And Brendan Lee by 1,000th slower than Longuet as well.
So he's in the mix, but it's the longest lap of the year. One sector will not put you at the front, delivering as well. Sector 1 totally different to Sector 2, and that is where the setup of the car can change. That is where, so far today in the rain, Freddie Rasmussen has been very strong.
Absolutely. Manley through the middle sector. It's a 49.4. 4, as Zilderim's done a 49.0, which puts him ahead, but then he'll have the slower Sector 3 because he's running a little bit more wing. It is all to play for here as the rain continues to come down. More middle sector times coming through. Fassi's looking quick in the middle as well.
So this is Tom Manley about to complete the lap. 8 minutes to go, but the information is the rain is going to continue to fall. This is the track in its best condition in Q3. Tom Manley delivers. It's a 52.3. Zelderim had a brilliant 2/3 of the lap. He's able to displace his teammate. He's already got 1 pole this year in China. Ronha takes it away. Brendan Lee to 4th. Fassi, our championship leader, already down to 7th place. Nicolas Longuet is in 6th. We've got Alfie Butcher on the front row at the moment. Our championship leader down in 7th. Who are we going to get now? Danny Beresne, front row yesterday, and he's put it into the top 5. Here's his teammate Pookie, straight behind him. Freddie Rasmussen's in the pit.
Yeah, he pulled into the pits. Rasmussen was not happy with that lap, whether it was an invalidation or just slow. Rasmussen pulled into the pits. I think it might have been an invalidation when I'm looking at these live timings. No middle sector.
Okay, let's check in with Nicolas Longuet. Play you some radio from a few moments ago.
The grip is not that good. It's worse than the end of Q1.
Yeah, I can see in the spectator mode, it's rainy like crazy.
Okay, so Thomas Ronha has made his way to provisional pole. Driver talking about being cautious in the race yesterday to us. You're looking at the state of the pit lane at the moment, bottom right-hand side of your screen. Alfie Butcher, we highlighted him and the fact that he'd not quite brought the form from his rookie season.
And here he is.
Time at McLaren. He's answered the call.
He certainly has.
Butcher on the front row. Zelderim finding himself, as it stands, with a qualifying performance in the first 6 races of the year, with 1 pole, 1 third place. Absolutely superb lap. And he clawed it all back, Matt, in the middle part of the circuit after Tom Manley had set a great first sector. And he's going again. Can anyone find an improvement on the second part of the lap? You've heard from Longuet that the rain is intense, and there is the visual image to back that up. One-shot qualifying may well be complete with our race winner from yesterday in 10th place, our championship leader in 9th place. Longuet, who would have been dreaming of the front row, I think, if it had been slightly drier. We went from the 40s to the 50s in terms of the track time out there, and that really shows you how wet it was very, very quickly. So sometimes it looks wet and the drivers are able to live with it. Not the case today, not the case in this build of game. And Thomas Ronha looks like he's done the job with the rain continuing to fall.
We've officially entered storm territory now with the weather forecast. Freddie Rasmussen, of course, dived into the pits, didn't even finish his lap, went on another set of inters, praying that the conditions wouldn't be too much worse. But I think we will be able to see very, very quickly that the conditions are terrible out there. Intermediates will be struggling, I think, to say the least. I imagine he'll try anyway, unless he just thinks, no, there's absolutely no point. But with 4 minutes 52 to go, very unlikely to see any kind of conditions that will see improvements from anybody out there. Let's see. Yeah, Rasmussen. Oh, no, he's going to start this lap. She's going to give us some entertainment, Alex. We're not just going to have to do a podcast for the final 5 minutes of Q3. We'll keep an eye on the sector times. Freddie Rasmussen starting a lap in a river.
Let's see what he's able to do. So wasn't happy with his lap, pulled into the pits. He's got the inters on, but it's looking slightly damp out there.
You just see the rain coming down. This is going to be a treacherous lap, to say the least. But Rasmussen's going to try. He's going to try.
Good bravery. Kept it pinned. Was listening to the engine note through Eau Rouge and Radeon. You can see he's changing the brake bias for the huge stop. Into Les Combes. Rides the curb nicely.
It's not a terrible first sector.
He's not struggling as much as I expected him to be in the slower corners. We'll get a read now as we head down into Rivage.
Of course, the first sector is essentially one corner and then flat out, as we saw from Freddie. And he was half a second down on the fastest first sector we've seen. This middle sector is going to tell us all we need to know. And we can even see visually right now how much Freddie is struggling out there. How much time is he losing?
It doesn't look as far away as I expected. At the end of this second sector, we're going to get a read about whether he's going to be able to trouble anyone ahead of him. But the first sector, as you say, just a flat-out blast. Oh, he's fighting the car all the time. Into the two right-handers at Stavolo now.
Yeah, middle sector 1.2 down on the fastest we've seen in that middle. So he isn't miles away, but he's still going to be 10th fastest, sadly, for Freddie, because there wasn't really many mistakes out there from the 9 drivers that have put a time on the board.
As soon as he went to Rivage, you just saw he was having to wait, having to be hesitant on the throttle pickup, and that is the part of the lap where you're waiting longer, the corner duration improves, and he won't even finish the contest. The first sector gave him hope, and the second sector's more technical section, just unable to get around the conditions. Our driver who has adored this place in the past, a former winner around here. He's going to have to do the business from 10th on the grid. He's got the points leader in front of him as well. Thomas Ronhaar was talking about being cautious. He has scored in all 5 races. He will be looking for his first win of 2025 from the front of the field, having delivered in that one and done shootout. As Alfie Butcher, who looks set to join him on the front row, goes out there maybe for a little bit of information gathering, but the field looks set with the conditions. It's going to be a strong result for Thomas Ronhaar when he needed it. This does feel that the day 2 of event 2 feels so important to define who's got a chance and who is going to start having to get into risky territory with strategy, with 50-50 moves. And it's a day that at the moment has started very, very well for Thomas Ronhaar. He finds himself just ticking the boxes off at the end. He's going to take pole, and he's going to do that for the first time this season. It will be his second front row start. The other one was earlier in the year in China.
Can't believe I'm saying that the 2 Red Bulls will start 10th and 11th. Rasmussen was looking really strong.
Yeah.
In these changeable conditions, but one mistake, that's all it is. And Rasmussen was the only one, really, to make that mistake on the one lap that counted in this session, and he'll start in 10th position. Fassi will be maybe slightly disappointed with that as well in 9th. It's an improvement from Silverstone, as Ronhaar gives us all the sliding and all the steering action. Thank you very much, Thomas, for the action as we count down the clock in this Q3 session. But the drivers up there are entertaining us.
Yeah, just looking around, and both of the Sauber boys are basically goading each other to do it more. Brendan Lee and Thomas Ronhaar are having a drifting competition between themselves.
I'm going to see a whole lap of it, Alex. Come on then, Ronhaar and Lee. Let's see who can drift better.
As they go over the line, and the outlaps being completed. Rain can come continuing to fall. I think the drivers are just marking this off, just in case. No information that we've heard on team radio about the track improving. So I think the drivers are just marking this off. We'll just keep an eye on the sector times as well. Checkered flag is now out, and we're enjoying the final laps. Drivers getting times on the board. Freddie Rasmussen, that first lap when the conditions were at their driest, not able to go on to another lap, but crucially everything coming undone for him at the start of the session, and he will start in 10th position.
Confirmation there is no grip out there. Ronhaar 7/10 slower in that first sector than the fastest we've seen. I think that was actually him trying to generate some tyre temperature, a very aggressive way of doing that, but as you say, covering it off. I think the RB team very happy to retire and confident that the track wasn't going to improve. Ronhaar pushing through in this middle sector. Pookie's done an all right first sector considering the conditions, a 32.9, only 4/10 off the optimal. But you can see there, top right of your screen, Ronhaar, we're riding on board with him live, almost a second down on his fastest lap. So despite visually it looking quite a lot worse than what we saw at the start of the session, it's still, they can't find the time.
So Thomas Ronhaar is going to take his first pole position of the season, and he will have an opportunity to try and re-establish his championship bid, having fought for the title last year. He finishes his drifting exhibition in some style. Really nice stuff across the line. And there you go. The not too far away in terms of the conditions, only 1.8 seconds away from his best, but his best good enough for pole position. Alfie Butcher booking his place on the front row. Then it's the Racing Bulls on row number 2. Danny Beresne leads in all Mercedes row 3. Brendan Lee in 7th. He'll be pleased with that one. And then it's Nicholas Longuet, championship leader Ismail Fassi, and man who is trying to get into that championship picture, Freddie Rasmussen, who will start in 10th position. What stands out for you after a very wet and wild...
Look at that.
wet and wild qualifying session, Matt?
What stands out to me, Ron Haar on pole. Really important for him to be starting on pole to mount his championship bid, as you say. In the points in every single round, 5th position currently in the drivers' standings. Not far away at all, 19 points off the top, and he's starting on pole position. Make that 18 now, because he has a point to his name for pole position. But Alfie Butcher as well, really impressive from him. You can see the smile on his face there, sticking it on the front row of the grid. Azildarim as well, so many stars from this qualifying session, and I can't wait for the race later on. Will we see the weather change once more?
Here we are then, gentlemen. What an exhibition Q3 that was. Really enjoyed that. I wanted to see more sliding and drifting from some of the drivers there. Expertly done, gentlemen. It felt like it turned into a bit of a podcast there, which was beautiful. I want more of that. Is something you would consider, Jake C?
I don't think anyone else wants the podcast. They want the action, but we tried our best.
Well, look, weather, before I say goodbye to you, weather was going to be a huge factor.
Yeah.
It definitely proved that right there as Barry Burman leaving the Ferrari guys. They had 2 weeks of training in Maranello to get ready for this event. Not quite going their way at the moment, but there you go. A driver that needed a little bit of form. Back again, Alfie Butcher, Jana Watmer taking a knee there, just chilling out, relaxing. He knows what he has to do in P11 to start the race. If ever there was a driver that can turn that into a win, it is your 2-time champ, Jarno Opmeer. And Freddie Rasmussen just behind him. He won't be quite happy with that showing there, but the weather was a huge factor. And Thomas Ronhart last night, as we were racing in Silverstone, he came over to the side. He said he qualified in the middle of nowhere and finished the race in the middle of nowhere, but not now. His 9th pole position in his F1 sim racing career.
It's interesting to hear the dynamics of some of the drivers and how they're changing styles. Like, for example, Thomas Ronhart, we spoke to off camera, and he said, "Yeah, I'm being more cautious." And then you had Freddie Rasmussen on the desk saying, I'm not a nice guy anymore. So they're all kind of changing the way in which they're going about this championship. And I think Freddie, once again, is going to have to show that not nice guy approach to improve from 10th position later on. But Ronhart, the cautious Ronhart now, from pole position, how much caution is he going to show?
Oh, if you're Alfie Butcher, you've heard that. You know that he's thinking about backing out of every 50-50 move. That makes you far more likely for a late send on the opening lap of the race.
And then you've got a driver down there, the Racing Bulls, Ulas in P3, Tom Manny in P4. As I mentioned before going to quality, Tom Manny picking up points in every single race, bar China, where he had to retire. So they're gunning for it. And Ulas had a pole position earlier on in the season, and he will have learnt from that position. Elbows are going to be out. I wouldn't want to necessarily call the first lap on this race, Alex, because it is going to be changing. I would predict drivers, the likes of Freddie Rasmussen in 10th, Ismail Fassi and Jarno Opmeer in 11th, they're all fighting positions.
Key thing, Tom, the Racing Bulls and the Mercedes line up together. So you want both cars in close proximity to give you those tactical options with the strategy, like we saw from Mercedes yesterday when they played the team game brilliantly. It was Benham and Beresne yesterday. It's Pookie and Beresne today. So yeah, keeping that formation flying going on the opening lap going to be really important for Racing Bulls and Mercedes.
Kick Sauber, both drivers getting into Q3. The man at the top in pole position is Thomas Ronhart. He is now with Claire Cossingham.
A tricky qualifying session, to say the least, but it's you, of course, Mrs. Thomas Ronhart, on pole position. Is that a bit of a surprise to you?
It kind of was in the first place because, you know, with these conditions, like I've never seen such a chaotic quali ever in my life. It was wet in the first session, and then towards the end of Q2 it was dry, and now it was wet again. It was all over the place, so we had to make the right calls. And my engineer Ryan, we had some great calls together. Really working together as a team, which was very important in this quality. Of course, Brendan is up there as well in the top 10. So it's always good in the race to work together. The laps I did was very, very, very strong. And it was important to get that first lap in because as you saw right at the end, the conditions were thunderstorming. It was crazy out there, but yeah, very happy to take pole.
At that point, you know there's never going to be a impressive time above that, so you would have known you've got pole position. At the beginning of the session, though, we heard a big collective groan when the rain was coming down at the beginning of Q1. Were you happy to see the rain, or were you part of the person going, oh no, here we go?
Kind of both. I think when I saw in the first session, it was completely like soaked. I think as a team, we always prep for every single condition. I think we did really well in terms of the setup. I think towards the end of, let's say, when the inter started to dry, towards the end, the inters became quicker. I think I was a bit on the higher side of the downforce, so towards the end, couldn't really get the advantage I had, let's say, in Q3 with, let's say, such thunderstorm weather. Made it work, and very happy to take pole.
Was there any point during that session where you thought, I'm not sure we're getting the strategy right here?
Nah, I don't think there was any moment where we had any doubts in what we were doing. I think we were very confident with what we did today. Just goes to show how much we work behind the scenes, making sure we make the right calls every time. And I don't think in this quality we made any wrong decisions. So yeah, very happy.
Clearly it was a team thing, because like you say, your teammate was up there as well. We go racing in a couple of hours, about an hour and a half. Pole position is where you want to start. But in a place like Spa, it's not necessarily, I guess, where you're going to finish. Is it going to be a tricky race?
It will be a tricky race, but like I said, starting on pole, of course, first of all, an extra point. So that's always good to have. In Spa, you've seen in the past, I'm not sure there's anybody that won from pole around there. We'll have to see in the race how it goes, but I'm confident with how we did in the quali. We can just carry that over in the race. I'm sure we'll do some great stuff.
Okay, looking to see if you can be the first to win from pole. We'll have to look at that stat. Thomas, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Looking very good is Thomas Ronhaar. Return to form, you could say, for him. Right calls at the right time, gentlemen. That is definitely the storyline of Silverstone and today at Spa, isn't it?
It's brutal if it's not worked out for you in qualifying, because as we heard from Otis Lawrence, you're like, oh, if it was dry, all of the prep, like it's a randomizer, and if you lose out, it's so frustrating. But if you get it right with your team, it almost bonds them even closer, gives the driver confidence the team know what they're doing at the right moment, and yeah, can reward you with pole position.
Quite a few drivers are lining up with their teammates. Let's have a look at the starting grid as we start all the way back with Josh Ido for Alpine in 20th, the Welshman in 19th, Duncan Hoffler making his third race in his F1 sim racing career. The Haas guys start in 18th and 17th. Moving further up the grid, you have Barry Broman, last year's winner here at Spa, starts in P16, and Otis Lawrence, the youngest ever sim racing winner, is in 15th there. Moving on up, the champion who was not happy about that 14th place start for him today, the 2022 champion, Lucas Blakely in 14th, Alvaro Caraton in 13th. And then the man who finished second back in 2018, Joni Tormela, starts in 12th, with Jarno Otmir with it all to do in 11th place. 13 wins for the sim racing two-time champion. Can he make it 14 today? Freddie Rasmussen in 10th, Ismail Fassi, your championship leader, starts in P9. And then up, the Frenchman Nicolas Longuet starts in 8th. Brendan Lee, dizzy heights for the man that is retiring for sim racing, starts in P7.
He's not done yet, is he?
No, he's not. He's looking for maybe another podium. Istvan Pukki with his teammate Danny Berezny, the Mercedes guys, in 6th and 5th. And then Tom Manley and Ulas Ozildrum start for the Racing Bulls in 3rd place there. And then the front row, Alfie Butcher, a return for him. He starts in P2. And pole sitter Thomas Ronhaar. And with it all to do, I'd say Alfie Butcher, how is he going to attack this situation? Matt, when we heard from Thomas Ronhaar, he's going to be less aggressive, more cautious. That is really an opportunity for Alfie, maybe on the first turn or to really attack it.
Yeah, look, we're saying that Thomas Ronhaar's going to be more cautious. We'll wait and see, right? Exactly. Like, it's different when you're sitting in 6th and, as he mentioned to us, like in the middle of nowhere and being cautious, and then there's leading a race and trying to win and get yourself back in the championship fight, potentially even the championship lead, maybe. So for Ronhaar, I don't think he's going to change all too much, but he needs to pick his battles wisely. I don't think it'd be wise for any moves to be made into turn 1 because you've got a big old run down the Kemmel Straight. So that's where we may even see 3 wide for the lead. Good luck. And it should be.
I did that to him as well earlier. I said, I'm not looking like in this one. It's going to be.
First laps are epic. You've got to enjoy first laps, and we're really nicely set up because again the wet weather scrambled our grid a little bit.
Yeah. In terms of surprises, in terms of the qualifying that we thought would happen and didn't quite happen, is Barry Burman maybe the biggest shock? They're going out in Q1, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we had a track guide, didn't we, from him telling us how to do Spa.
I feel like we stitched him up a little bit.
We really did.
Would you like to do a track guide?
The track guide.
Yeah, maybe we need to keep an eye on that and see if there's a recurring
correlation.
theme.
Yeah.
But yeah, Barry Burman, of course, he's going to be upset with 16th, and just the woes of Ferrari continue with at least one driver at the moment. And I fully expect him to mount a charge back through the field, but you look at this grid and you don't really see that many where you go, oh yeah, he'll easily dispatch of him. He's next to Otis Lawrence. You know, it's so mixed up.
And how will these teams work together when you've got drivers, just one place apart from one another? How would they attack this? We thought maybe this is it, Red Bull, a return to form. I'm not saying they're not in form there, but you've got both drivers in P11.
Well, they're together, at least.
They're together. It's the consistency.
Looking on the bright side of life, Matt. I like it.
But in terms of those making the right calls at the right time, they'll have to go away now and come up with a sort of strategy how they're going to play this one.
Well, yeah, we've seen it before. Mercedes have been the geniuses behind the strategy, I think, so far this season. Just splitting the strategy, right? Don't go with the same thing for both drivers. Put Benham, for example, in Silverstone. They put Benham with an earlier pit stop to make sure that he could be at the front of the train and to impact the pace slightly, and then bring Beresne in.
So that's soft tyres for Freddie Rasmussen then, because we know that Jarno Opmeer likes a lovely long first stint and then a charge through at the end. So there you go. I think we know what we're going to get from them.
But then Freddie was on the soft to finish the race yesterday, so he might not want to. Someone's going to have to take some team orders.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. We'll have to ask Marcel Kiefer. He's going to be coming onto the show in just a moment to highlight some things that you
say. I mean, I've heard these promises before, Tom.
Yeah, you have.
They will get going. But yeah, it's great to hear. Earlier on with Otis Lawrence, coming into event 2, he's riding high off the win in Jeddah. And then it's sort of like a bump down to reality of like, okay, you're flying high, but hang on a minute. There's 19 other drivers who have got a target on your back. And he's handled it very well there, interview by Claire Cottingham. And I think showing that maturity, which I like to see. Marcel is somewhere in Sweden right now in a studio. He's been given his own area. Marcel, what's going on?
Welcome to the VIP area, Tom. I would like to have you here, but first of all, what an amazing qualifying. We had again so much chaos in Q2, Q1 and also Q3. And one of the standout moments, Mr. Back and Form, Mr. Frederick Rasmussen. He performed yesterday super well, but today there was a bit of a shocker when he actually invalidated on his final flying lap. Well, not his final one, but the one when it mattered, when the track was at its quickest state, and it happened in Q3. Heading into this left-hand corner, everything's looking nicely, but then on the exit you can see Freddy is just understeering further and further to the edge, and already at this point it is too late for him. So he gets the off track, the track map turns red, and you can see in this area, this is what matters. So the drivers always need to make sure that they have, let's put it like this, they always need the car fully on the track at all times with at least 2 tires. So there needs to be contact with it. And unfortunately, Freddy did not manage to do that and got the invalidation. And with that, it was P10 only because everyone else set a lap time. And talking about lap times, let's compare the P1 lap time from Thomas Ronha to P2 Alfie Butcher, which was actually an amazing showdown. He seemed so confident. We have Ronha on the left and Alfie on the right. Let's have a look at the differences in driving style and setup. So first of all, what I always notice when looking at Thomas Ronha, he's locking the wheels. Like he's putting in so much effort in turning the wheel. I hope for him he doesn't run too much forward feedback because otherwise he might tear a muscle at some point. Heading nearly flat, and I think they were actually flat through this uphill sequence. Super famous, and now into the end of Sector 1. Top speeds are way higher for Alfie Butcher, and this is where Thomas Ronha gets into play. So his setup and his driving style is all made for the middle sector. He had only 307 kph on the end of this back straight, and then Alfie Butcher with 316 or 17 nearly, so 10 kph difference, and you can see Thomas is gaining and gaining and gaining, and actually he's closer to Ismail Fassi, which can be a little bit distracting, but he's making sure he's using all of the track and just getting ever so slightly ahead, and he had a ridiculous middle sector. I think he was so much faster than anyone else, and compared to, for example, what Freddy tried in the end on the second run, the track was so much worse that it was 1.2 seconds slower than what we had on this lap from Thomas. So it was so much slower. There was no way. It was a one-shot shootout, and Thomas is ahead with a 21.7. Now Alfie should get back. It's roughly 0.4 difference, but in the end we know how it's going to play out. Looking at a top speed again for both drivers at this year, we're already faster with Alfie by quite a lot. How is the end? Again, nearly 5 to 7 kph. So yeah, the McLaren team definitely run lower downforce levels than Thomas, and Thomas made sure, even in this corner under braking, to get ahead ever so slightly, and that is a 0.2 difference on the highest level of sim racing. So yeah, well done to Thomas, also to Alfie to finally getting up to the front row, and I will shoot back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Marcel. VIP area, of course.
That's why you're not there, mate.
No, exactly. But I tell you what, while Marcel was talking, I was ordering a leather jacket, so maybe I'll get in there. Gentlemen, I didn't know where Marcel was going to go when he started drawing on Telestrator.
I obviously just love that analysis because it's great to see the key moment. We didn't see that live, but yeah. He'd be great at Pictionary, wouldn't he?
Yeah. What did you make of that, Matt, from what Marcel broke down there?
It's just brilliant to see the analysis from a former driver as well. Of course, heartbreak for Freddie Rasmussen in the sense of millimetres running wide in unknown conditions.
Yeah.
And that was the invalidation, but that's the difference, right? In this championship, you can't make mistakes like that. Something that we don't tend to see from Freddie, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's great to see the comparison and the difference in setup as well. I think Spa is the only place you'll get this marked of a difference in setup between drivers wanting the first and third to be quick because they've got top speed, or the second sector where Ron Haas just whacked on a load of downforce and was rapid. So yeah, can't wait to see the difference in setups again as we go to the race later on today.
It is genuinely fascinating. All right then, putting you on the spot then, before we go to Claire's corner, where we'll be finding out how Alfie Butcher's feeling. Drivers, are we going to have a 6th different winner? Who's going to be maybe making it 2 wins so far? From what we've seen from these 5 rounds previously, this is our 6th race.
Yeah, I think we will. I'd be astounded if we don't get it.
I mean, I'm looking at the grid and I'm like, well, how many of these are not race winners that we've currently
Ron
had
Hart not
season?
this year, Butcher not this year, Ozilderim not this year, same for Manley, same for Beresne, same for Pookie, same for Brendan Lee.
Yes, so Fassi is 9th and he's the first repeat race winner.
It could happen. Yes. Okay, I'll tell you what, we have filled that time perfectly because Claire's corner is right now with Alfie Butcher.
Best qualifying of your career in F1 sim racing, Alfie. That is quite impressive, considering, of course, you got your win first time out last season. But what did you have your Weetabix this morning? What happened?
Yeah, I think we've obviously had some not so ideal qualifyings in the past, but today we were really switched on with all the calls, and obviously in the changing conditions we really nailed every call. So yeah, I'm really happy for the team, and it's good that we can be on the front row.
It was one of those qualifying sessions where when we spoke to Thomas Ronhart, it was very much, it had to be strategy based and you really had to listen to the team. There was rain in the first session and then obviously intermittent rain throughout the whole session. How much did you have to kind of strategize before you went into this?
Yeah, I think every time we went out the pits, obviously it had its own implications. So we always had to stay on our toes. Each call was very important to get through to the next qualifying, but thankfully we did just that, and we made our way into Q3.
Did you realise at the end, because it's always difficult, isn't it, when the rain's coming down and lots of different things are happening. At that point, I guess the rain was getting heavier, wasn't it, really, to the end of it? So you were kind of feeling you were quite safe. Was there a point where you were like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm going to be second here?
Yeah, I think obviously after the first run, we felt like we were in a good spot. Obviously, we knew obviously that the weather was getting a bit heavier, but we didn't want to rule anything out. We wanted to go out for the final run at the end just to cover all bases. And yeah, I think it ended up being 2 seconds off, obviously, because of the heavier rain, but yeah.
How are you settling into McLaren now? You obviously coming over from Haas in your first year, no longer the youngest. Actually, I think you still might be the youngest on the grid. I can't remember if it's you or Otis now. I'm going to get a scream in my ear being like, it's Otis. But anyway, you are now the youngest on the grid. How are you settling in your second year now?
Yeah, obviously McLaren's a really friendly environment. I'm really loving every minute. So yeah, I've settled in really quick. I'm really friendly with a lot of the people there already, and we're just continuing to build our relationships.
Coming into this second round, how much extra preparation did you have to do?
Yeah, I think we did similar preparation, just shifted what we needed to. Obviously, after event 1, we took our learnings and we tried to base that on where we needed to improve, and that's exactly what we've done.
It's going to be a chaotic race, and I feel we say this quite often with F1 sim racing, but Spa especially is a pretty chaotic one. Thomas Ronhaar again was saying to us that he doesn't think anyone's actually won from pole position. So how are you going to navigate what happens in a couple of hours' time?
Yeah, obviously it's likely to be quite a chaotic one with the nature of the straights and the DRS. So yeah, we're just trying to keep our nose clean and see where we end up.
Got more racing to go today. This isn't the only race. Please do join us later this afternoon as well. 2 races. Which one are you looking more forward to? That's not the right way of saying it, but I've committed now.
Maybe if you asked me like a couple hours ago before qualifying, I would have said Zandvoort, but now I'm on the front row. So Spa.
Okay, Zandvoort is somewhere you enjoy though?
Yeah, of course.
Great.
I like both tracks, but I'd say Zandvoort's probably my personal favourite out of the two.
Okay, no pressure, no pressure. Well done. Let's see how you do in the race in a few hours' time. Good luck.
So cosy and comfortable in Claire's corner there. Alfie Butcher, first time in there. He looked very happy with that. He's very happy starting P2 on the grid for later on. Now, I've been practicing, Alex, Matt. It's 1500 Central European time.
Perfect.
Yeah, nailed it.
Perfect.
So that's
all of Europe.
All the calls were made at the right time, and they were the correct ones. Looking forward to this. You're definitely coming back, gentlemen?
Yes. I hope so, but there's no one in this studio
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah,
It's the
it's
weirdest
a ghost
thing.
town
Everyone's
right
gone to lunch.
There's always a lot of noise. This is what you need to do. 1500 Central European time. Come back as we go racing around Spa. Thanks for joining us for the quali.